Alrighty, so this is the S12 that I've been working on. A bit over here. Pretty clean little example of what it is, very minimal rust. Came to me needing a fair bit of work done, which snowballed into getting a lot of work done. So the SR, which was originally in here, was done poorly. I believe poorly would be the word I'd like to use. So we've had to come in, fix up all the wiring, redo the entire intercooling piping setup. I took this engine out and had to put all new seals in it, front rear main, rocker cover gaskets, intake exhaust gaskets, pretty much everything that's a gasket has been touched. I started cleaning it, which snowballed into everyone else cleaning it too. So we've got a standard T28 low mount turbo down there. We've got a heat shield on here because they actually matter. Don't worry about this is temporary. My buddy who did all the wiring, who did a brilliant job, including going through, rewrapping everything, inspecting all the wires that were present on the body of the vehicle, wiring up the AU Falcon setup to utilize standard Nissan relays so you'll never have a problem. So he did that, also managed to make a cute little bracket to mount the igniter away from the heat. Normally they're mounted on the strut tower, which they just melt straight away, so it's terrible. He's also made this monstrosity. So it's a breakout point for the power coming in, then going to starter mode and power everything. Main body fuse as well. He made the bracket for this, made sure it wrapped around so it held it. There's also a similar thing down the bottom there for the earth. We've got big piss off 0 gauge wires because we don't play around. Put Grex All Cooler kit in it, thermostatic cooler, which the cooler is mounted down here, which is then followed by obviously our intercooler and our radiator. We've had to relocate the radiator back because I want an intercooler to be in bay. The piping that it used to have a front mount set up, but it was mounted underneath here, and just by putting the intercooler slightly back in this position, we've shortened the overall length of intercooler piping by at least 1 meter, which is going to make a huge difference in response. I made a support bar underneath it, so much like the radiator that can drop down onto grommets, the intercooler does the same. That way it's just this plate holding it together, so I can disconnect this, take the plate off, and then I can literally just pull the intercooler up and pull the radiator up. We've gone thermos because they were supplied, and frankly we don't have much in the way of room. It's worked out rather well. I just made sure to tape everything up with high temp aluminium tape, so that's not going to have a problem. Recirculator blow off valve, and yeah, just done all the nice things. I had to take a bit of extra time with fabrication to ensure that we could still fit the standard bottles. This took a bit of tinkering, and we also had to make a custom water neck. So this is normally a cast piece which runs underneath the Dizzy, and the output is here. Obviously with moving the radiator we had to relocate that. In addition, we mounted you can see here, an M14 thermostatic sensor switch. So when it reaches a certain temperature, that is what turns the fans on. Before here had just a switch, which is a no-go. We've got an AN6 water feed line down to the turbo, so that keeps it nice and neat. Normally the lines that run through the back, which I hate. We've obviously also got a mounting point to keep the dipstick where it needs to be, and an additional sensor for the water temp sensor. We've continued to brace it up the front as well, very much similar to the stock setup, just wanting to ensure it doesn't have a problem. Yeah, so interior wise I haven't done a great deal. We've got Before it had like another gearbox which was shit, so we put an SR box in it, which necessitated that we had to move the shifter back and cut a bit of a hole, which unfortunately can't be avoided with these older cars. It just means that reverse now hits the little handbrake button there. That just makes sure that your handbrake's off, so I don't see a problem with that. If anything, it's actually in a good position. This shifter's knob's temporary, but it's in a good position. It's got this all-in-one little gauge thing, which I had to go through and rewire and tidy up because it was just done fucking horribly by the previous person who did that. But otherwise, I haven't done shit. That last bit needs to be tidied up after my mate fixes one wire. In the back, we have done a proper battery relocation on a nice big plate of steel. With our 0 gauge leading up. So we've also got an additional earth wire here, which runs straight down to the body, so it has a consistent amount of voltage. So we've also earthed the front as well. We want to make sure there's no problems with earthing on this vehicle. What else is there? Alright, 1 second, we'll take it up and show you the bottom because it's also pretty interesting. Alright, so it is a bit dirty at the moment. We had a big storm come through and it was outside and it got a little dirty, but I'm going to clean it. Super light wheels. We've gone to S13 turbo front brakes. Standard rear, which is fine. Coilovers. We've had to redo some brake line routing and shit. S14 caster arm modified to work with the with this S12. So you have to drill a hole up here and open up a hole back here that goes through the back. I used R33 front sway bar clamshells, which you can see the offset. This one sits much lower. They bolted straight in, otherwise you gotta fuck around with custom shit, but I ain't gonna have any of that. We've had to space the cross member down an inch, just because with the actual good engine mounts, not the totally old flogged ones, this will hit the bonnet, so whole thing had to come down. You can actually see my nice little support bar here for the intercooler. Isn't that lovely? Welded on some brackets for the radiator. Otherwise, pretty much stock down here. Yeah, I think it's S13 knuckles and LCAs. There's my funky oil cooler. Things to note, I guess my buddy who's very OCD with his wiring got a little carried away with making brackets and routing cables. He wanted to make sure that they are protected, especially at the lower points. So this is one of the low points of the chassis, and he wanted to make sure it had protection. In addition, we've obviously grommeted and put a bit of silicone to seal it up. We've had to do a custom, we've had to modify the cross member to mount up correctly. We've had to move it slightly. Normally it sits here, so we've had to extend that out so it lines up. You can see the original holes, and we've put a plate in to lower it, or lower the cross member down slightly to make it all work, which was a bit of fiddling, but my welder's really good. My amazing fabrication, because I want the hanger to be there. Fun fact for those playing at home, the SR gearbox with the standard S12 mechanical speedo seems to plug straight in. I've got to confirm if it works yet, but it seems to plunk straight in, so that's nice. XB Falcon tail shaft, which we've had cut and modified to fit the length that we needed. Saved us a couple of bucks. The R200 long nose in a 3:7 ratio, unfortunately. I would like it to be minimum 3:9 or a 4:1, but they're just hard to get your hands on. This thing to note, the R200 long nose, the pinion flange is smaller. So when we had this drive shaft made, we thought it was for the normal R200 it would fit perfectly. It did not, so I had to pull a pinion off a later model R200 and it just bolts straight on. So nice save there. You can see this cross member is early model IRS, which frankly is a pain in the ass. The more you lower it, the worse it gets, but whatever. We had to put new wheel bearings in it because they were flogged. And then with the rear mount here, because they're a pain in the ass, I just filled it full of silicone window sealer stuff. So hopefully it gives it a bit more life. Sway bar bushes, the stock exhaust. The exhaust is a 2 1/4 system, which was actually done not too bad by an exhaust shop. If he wants to turn the power up, it's too fucking small. Crush bends get to like, I guess they're 2 inches at some points, but yeah, not the best, but it is what it is for now. When he wants to get more power out of it, that has to go. What else we got? Yes. Things and stuff. Heaps of clearance for the gearbox, which was nice. Didn't have to bash out the tunnel or anything, so that's always a nice feeling. Put new oil, obviously new fuel lines. It can take ethanol if it needs to. I've got pictures of it, but I redid all the wiring inside the fuel pump as well. Just because they usually fuck out, which this case it was. And it's got no 4.4 in there, so it screams like a Banshee, but now it has reliable, stable power. Yeah, that's about it really. It's an SR12. It's been an absolute headache, but pretty proud of the outcome. I think the engine bay in particular looks fucking awesome, so I'm now going to take it for its maiden drive, and hopefully it survives.